understand that you've been married for quite a while.
Yes, sir.
What branch of the service was your husband in?
My husband was a United States Marine. So.
Wonderful.
And as a Marine, he recognized he's part of the Department of Navy, particularly.
I would not have done that if you hadn't said this, Admiral. The Marine Corps always said the Navy's the best transportation corps we've ever had.
As somebody who served in ammunition ships, it's nice to have cargo that doesn't talk back. I think we're conflicting my aide, who has the privilege of having served in both services, United States Marine Corps. No, I think it's cool. Yeah, if I would. Yes, ma'am.
Speaking of breaking through the brass ceiling and everything, and you being the first to take command of a ship and all that, how was the response to you in doing that, and then taking command of a, I don't know exactly what you call it, but you're over multiple forces now. Yeah. So how has the response been to you as being a woman or an African American or whatever, a short person?
Short person.
Taking command of these.
Okay, so when you're an admiral, you can make people kneel. So that last one, it's no longer a problem. One of the things that we don't think about but is ever present is military business is a young person's game. When I took command of Rushmore in 1999, most of my sailors had no idea that it was an event. It became an event after it was reported in the media. In 1999 and 2000, when you're looking at 17, 18, 19-year-olds all the way up to their 20s, they already confused Vietnam with Desert Storm in their mind. So today, the average age is 25. I've been serving longer than most of our sailors have been in. I mean, they weren't born when I started. So their perspective of the world is very different. That hit home to me. I was asked to speak to a Navy information cell for Women's History Month, and one of their first questions was, why on earth would you have come into the Navy when you did, when you look at all the challenges that were for women? So I'm filling out my forms in 76 and 77. So when I spoke to that group, I said, let me ask you some questions. Were there any women Supreme Court justices when I was filling out my application form for Annapolis? No. Were there any women astronauts? No, Sally Ride didn't happen until 83. What was the average pay on the dollar for women when I was applying to Annapolis? It's like 45 cents on the dollar. The Navy was an opportunity of equal opportunity beyond, I think, what I could have done going up. Most women were secretaries. And I mean, and I liked pegging on Mannix, but I just wasn't going to do that when I grew up.
I joined the Air Force in 1980, I think, yeah, 1981. And when I took my AP's exam, I qualified for any job I wanted. So I said, I want to go into OSI. And they said, well, you can't.
Right.
I said, well, why not? I scored high enough. I only need a 90. I got a 94 on the exam. And they're like, because you're female.
Yes.
So what? And they go, well, it requires combat training, and we don't allow women in combat situations. I was like, that's okay with me. I'm willing to do that. It was a federal law.
Yes.
I could not go into a combat situation, so I couldn't join OSI.
And so that combat exclusion law was repealed in 1993, 1996, and that's what allowed me to transition to amphibious ships. There are still legal statutory restrictions. Women still do not serve in direct ground combat. So what it means for the services, for the Air Force and Navy, we have the most open occupations compared to the Army and Marine Corps. So it'll, and it's not that we don't have more to go. The CNO notified Congress this year he wants to open up submarines. So we're waiting to see how Congress responds to that notification. Okay, ma'am, there was a, yes ma'am.
Well, obviously you don't say anything about height, but
I'll make you kneel.
actually rejected out of the military when that occurred, that she had to get with a child. Do they accommodate more with the Navy in situations like that with family when you're going, you know?
Well, for most of our members are married, and many of them are parents. When you're coming in brand new, then for any of the services, if you already have children, then there is a waiver process. So it really gets down to a case-by-case basis. But I have a tremendous number of parents, both single parents and married parents, on board all the ships we've been on. Yes?
Such an amazing journey as you've been through. Out of all the memories, out of all the faces that you've met, out of all the people you've been in contact with, if you could preserve one memory of them, what would it be?
No, that is a tough one, because I'm not just doing one. So you can see I'm a personality used to having my own way. When we got on the beach on Indonesia the first day, the Marine Expedition Unit Colonel and I went into Malaba to go negotiate with the local Indonesian military leader. And then we walked through what we could provide. On the way back, we toured one of the dislocation camps that had popped up. And it's interesting because you hear about Muslim countries, but Muslims, like saying you're Protestant, whole range of belief sets within that word. And there was this young boy, we're in uniform, but there's this young boy who just came running up and broke through the ring of adults to shake our hands. And he had the biggest smile on his face, and you could tell he was just truly happy that someone had come from far away to help. And I will never forget the look on his face.
Were there any other female graduates from your program or that graduated with you? And how did they fare? And what do you think makes you different than them, more successful than them? If indeed you are.
Yeah, fair enough. When we started the Women at Sea program, it was in response to a lawsuit in the 70s. The law at the time said women could not serve on combatant ships and aircraft. So some women officers said, well, the Navy needs to define them what are non-combatants. So just as I was graduating from Annapolis, the Navy changed its policy in response to that lawsuit. So the numbers of women officers who were allowed in were very tiny. So the year I graduated, they let 7 women pick ships to start their career. I was number 7. So I just missed this whole lifetime, you know, I've been born like 10 minutes earlier. So I always thank my parents, woo, you were smart having me born in 1960, because 59 would not have worked. Law would have been repealed. Out of that group of 7, like most of our male classmates, most of them left after 5 or 6 years of active duty, which I think is also great, because then what I see happening is there are citizen sailors who go out and have successful lives in the community and go on to serve in institutions like this. So I think that's good too. By the end of about 10 years, there were just 2 of us left, Jennifer Brooks and myself. And Jennifer made it all the way up to second in command of a ship, but never screened for command of a ship. It gets very competitive once you start going into the boards for who gets selected. So Jennifer retired after 22 years and recently got her doctorate in psychology and is working with veterans, yes. And I'm the one out of that 7 who stayed in this and got this far.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
As a young woman going into Annapolis, what was your goal at that point for your life? Were you thinking?
I was thinking that I wanted an education. My dad was a retired master sergeant in the Air Force, and his family rule was checkout times 18. Classic master sergeant talk, so I was like, whew, he's serious. He was. So I needed a program where I would have a scholarship. I was watching towards the end there, I was watching my older brother try and work his way through Colorado University and go to school full time, and it was dogging him. I also was interested in the military from age 12 and was incredibly disappointed to find out service academies weren't open to women. So at 16 when they opened, I just jumped at the chance, and I applied to the Naval Academy and the Merchant Marine Academy. The reason I was focused on the Navy is I had done enough research to figure out that whatever I could do coming out of West Point, I could do going into the Marine Corps. The rule sets were the same. And whatever I could do in the Air Force at the time, I could do in the Navy. And so I thought, well, I just want to have the most opportunities for when I graduate at the far side. And that's what I was thinking.
What 3 character traits would you say a woman who wants to break a brass or glass ceiling needs to have?
It's interesting. I just gave a speech on that.
I heard you, but I want to...
No, I gave a speech on that literally 2 weeks ago. But it was 5, not 3.
Okay, I'll take 5.
You have to commit to the journey. This is not for wimps. It's non-traditional roles are defined by Department of Labor where there are less than 25% women in the community. So whether you're going to go into Department of Labor, which only has 5 or 6% women, or most of the military is still less than 25%. Air Force is at 20%. Women are the highest. Or science, math, you're probably going to be in a non-traditional role. And if it's even less than that, then you're probably going to be a pioneer. So you really have to commit to the journey. And then you have to keep a sense of humor. You have to develop stamina because there's going to be tough days. You have to, like the pioneering women of old, you have to let some things go. That when you're making a pioneering journey, they were tossing out clocks and pianos. Okay, well when you're making a pioneer journey, you start tossing out the mental baggage. Because you don't have time for it. Let it go. And then the most important role is you have to stay connected to other people who look like you. So if you are a minority and you are going into a profession where there's only 1s or 2s of you, you had bet, I don't care if you like them or not, you better hook up. It's just like the old West, you just ride over there, have a little quilt bee, have some chat, get all energized again and ride back to your part of the world. But you've got to stay connected with people who look like you. Because it can be scary going into an environment where no one looks like you. And I have been in rooms where I am the only woman and the only minority. And now, the good news is everybody else in the room doesn't realize that because they're just going on about their business. They don't know there's a lot of mental talk, particularly with women. All this is going on, and they're like, okay, and then next on the agenda, so you're focused on the fact you may be the only one in the room who looks like you. And there was one time I was really getting uptight about it because there was like 70 people in the room. And the one person who saved me was an enlisted guy who was the culinary specialist, and he's serving the cookies at this big meeting. And he sees me, he slides over, and then he winks at me, when he gives me the cookie, because he recognized I was it in the room. And I was like, oh, praise the Lord, I got a friend. Even if he's only serving the cookies, I got a friend in the room. So you have to stay connected with other people. Other women, particularly. Stay connected with other women. Because you have got to have a vent partner. You've got to walk through experience sets from your perspective. And sometimes your husband just can't do that for you. So those were the rule sets I came up with. Yes, ma'am.
Here at the university, we're always preparing undergraduate and graduate students to go out in the world and hopefully to make a difference and to make the place in their environment, whatever their environment is, a better place. And you're a leader and you work with a lot of young people and you see people coming through. What would you advise us in terms of what would be some of the greatest types of training, preparation? What are the skills that you think are most important?
Well, that's a broad area. Finding out where you fit. I bet they come to you and go, I don't know what I want to do.
All the time. All the time.
I still get into that, into counseling sessions. And I ask them how much time they spend thinking. The answer to those hard questions have to start with yourself. And if you don't know the world, then pick up some books. You don't have to pay a lot of money to travel the world and find out what the different types of jobs that are out there. And then occasionally, after we go through a process, they'll narrow down an area, and then I make sure I hook them up with someone. That I don't necessarily have to be the mentor, but as a leader, I'm obligated to find them a mentor. So I had a young lady who was a surface warfare officer, kind of knew she wanted to be in medicine, but wasn't sure. So I hooked her up with a doctor who'd been a clinical physician on his own for 15 years and then came to the Navy and had served with Marines and sailors. And she went and started, theoretically it was a 1-hour lunch, 4 hours later, she knew what she wanted to do. So I think we just have to, the answer is we have to get them into a framework where they can figure it out.
Do you never let them see sweat? And what I mean by that is that when something really goes wrong, when it's really, really hard. I mean, what has been the hardest situation you've ever had to make?
Okay, that is like so not my personality. I do eyeball rolls. Oh gosh, the grand thing about the Navy is I grew up to this rank. Because I think at any time if we were really like the Navy in the movies, I would have been cut off at the knees a long time ago. It's like, okay, you probably have to ask India. I don't really think I'm a yeller, but I am a venter. I will get on a roll, and I've been told I sound like a stand-up comic when I'm on a roll. I was told by my staff that the quietest and calmest I am is in a crisis, particularly during Maersk, Alabama. Halfway through, one of the commanders came in and he says, "Ma'am, you're just telling us what to do, taking information." He goes, "It's pretty impressive." He goes, "Well, how do you feel?" "Tired." You're focused on something and you're pouring your energy into it. But no, I'm pretty open with my folks because I'm just built that way. So leadership isn't necessarily about not showing that you sweat. Leadership is about being the best of who you can be. And if
As a marriage and family student, I would like to know, going through all these experiences and being a great leader, how did you maintain your relationship, healthy relationship with your family?
I was really horrible at it when I first started. It's a terrible sister and daughter. I think so. I think my mother would give me more slack, but... So, somewhere in my 30s, I suddenly realized I was not paying attention to my family. And my husband is it for me, and then after that, it is my mother and sister, and then, yeah, okay, my brothers. And, well, you know, it's really, even decades later, it's hard to get over guys who niggied your head. I'm an admiral now, for God's sakes. Somewhere in my 30s, I took time to reflect and thought, I am not cultivating the relationship with the people I love. I'm putting all my energy into my work. And so, being a math kind of person, I actually wrote out my plan and then broke it down into steps and made a matrix and said, okay, I will call 3 to 4 times a month. I will write X number of letters. And I did. I followed my plan. Now, the point is, very satisfying for, you know, that kind of personality to have a plan, but I didn't prescribe what I was going to say, what I was going to do, but I forced myself to change my behavior, and I went after my family. I initiated the contact with them. I sent them letters. I sent them cards on their birthday. I sent them flowers for Mother's Day. I stopped forgetting and started doing. And then about 5 years later, I was on the phone with my younger sister, and we were just chatting, and we were talking about making life choices, and I told her what I had done 5 years previously. She started to cry on the phone. She said, we noticed a change, and she said it was wonderful, and she said, but I'm having, and she was very happy that I deliberately decided to end this life. You don't just leave the Navy and then they're there. You have to invest in people, or they're not going to be there when you're done. You're like, ooh, I'm done with the Navy. I'm ready. Come see me. It's going to be like, who are you? You missed all the Nisa's graduations from high school. Dude, what was I? I was fighting pirates. I have an excuse. No, people have some priorities in your life. So, no, she was appreciative of the fact that I had deliberately changed my behavior, appreciative of the fact that I could talk to her about it, but then even more amazed that human beings can change their behavior for the good. It's a choice. So that too, the fact that I was willing to change is sometimes when I'm talking to my folks, I talk to them about that. What is your priority? Is it your wife? Is it your children? Is it your mother? I mean, we're dealing like everyone else more and more with mom and dad having to be taken care of. And if that is your priority, you can make it fit in your life. Just put some thought into it. You don't have to do the matrix like I did, but put some thought into it.
Could you, really naive, can you explain your...
Gold is good. Lots of gold means really big things. Stars are good. More stars are better. I am a 1-star with gold. I'm at the lowest level of admirals. We have 2 stars and 3 stars, and then 4 stars are people like the Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Roughhead, or Admiral Mullen, the chairman. It takes, if you are, I had someone say, making admirals like lightning strike. I think that's fair. So it's not only, because the talent pool is so big, and it's a lot about timing and opportunity. If you make 1 star, that normally happens around 26 years of service. So for the Navy and the Coast Guard, we have gold, and then my single star is right there. So when you, later this week, if you see people running around with 2 stars, 3 stars, genuflect. Am I going to get the 4th one? I just said that we had just had the first 4 star 18 months ago. Woo! I'm a bet women I'm going to be home going to those graduations is what I'll probably be doing. Okay, I think you guys talked out?